My name is Cindy Harvey, and I was 31 years old on the night my entire future collapsed. Quietly, without a scream, without a fight, without even a shattered glass to mark the moment. Just a soft crack inside my ribs, like something delicate giving way. The scent of seared scallops and lemon butter drifted through my apartment, a warm, hopeful smell I'd been crafting since late afternoon. This wasn't our official anniversary. It was the anniversary that mattered more to me. 3 years since our first date, the one where my boyfriend, Aaron Blake, had gotten so nervous he spilled beer on my shoe. I'd laughed. He'd looked mortified, and even then something in me softened toward him. Our cat Pepper wove himself between my ankles, nearly tripping me. "I know, sweetheart," I murmured, nudging him aside gently. "He'll be home soon." The table by the window was set with the good linens, the ones we bought as a joke when we pretended we were the kind of couple who knew anything about fabric weaves. A single candle flickered, stretching dancing shadows across the room we'd built together. Bookshelves lined with our blended paperbacks, the faint scratch on the hardwood from when we tried to move the sofa ourselves without measuring first. This apartment wasn't just rented, it was rehearsed, practiced, a draft of a future I believed was already the rough sketch of our forever. In the back of my desk drawer, beneath a stack of old tax returns, was a small velvet box. Not an engagement ring, not yet, but a promise ring, a warm-up, a soft beginning. The timeline for that was moving up. When the key finally turned in the lock, my heart did its usual small, foolish leap. Aaron stepped inside, blonde hair, messy from the wind, his messenger bag sliding from his shoulder. He was handsome in the way that snuck up on you, slowly, gentle features, patient eyes. But tonight, something in his expression was off, tired, pulled tight around the edges. "Something smells incredible," he said, smiling, but the smile didn't reach him. "Not fully." "Just something for my favorite person," I replied, crossing the room to kiss him. He accepted the kiss, but his body was stiff. A cold thread of unease tugged under my ribs. He sat at the kitchen island, exhaling sharply. Work was brutal. The new branding campaign is chaos. No one knows what they're doing, and I'm the one stuck holding it all together. I poured him a chilled glass of Sauvignon Blanc. "Well, now you're here. No chaos, no demands, just good food, good wine, and me." He nodded, but his eyes kept drifting away from me, away from the room, toward places I couldn't see. We ate. Conversation was a dying ember. The silences stretched, long and thin. I tried to fill them, telling him about debugging the nightmare code I'd fought all week. He nodded at the right times, but it felt like talking to someone behind a wall. "Aaron, are you okay?" I finally asked. "Yeah," he said too quickly. "Just a lot on my mind." I let it go. I'd always been the calm one, the anchor. I thought being steady meant swallowing my own questions to keep the peace. After dinner, we washed dishes together in the rhythm we'd memorized, me washing, him drying. It was familiar, or it should have been. Then he set the towel down. His hands trembled. "Cindy," his voice fractured, "we need to talk." The 4 words that hollow your bones instantly. I placed the last wine glass down, turning slowly to face him. "Okay," I said. "Talk." He inhaled shakily. "I saw someone today." A cold spark of dread flickered. "Who?" He didn't look at me as he said it. "Melissa." My stomach dipped. Melissa, his ex-girlfriend. The one who'd once left him shattered. The one whose name he avoided saying out loud for over a year. The one he insisted meant nothing anymore. I forced my voice steady. "Where?" "At the coffee shop on Elm. It was an accident." His words tumbled faster now, as if racing ahead of guilt. She was just there. My mind scrambled, trying to find the harmless explanation. The coincidence. The version where this was just an awkward run-in and nothing more. But Aaron kept talking. We started catching up, talking. He swallowed hard, and it was like no time had passed. The chemistry was just there. "Aaron," my voice wasn't angry, it was ice. She walked me to my car, his eyes finally lifted to mine, and she tried to kiss me. The room spun, and I whispered, "And..." He closed his eyes. I let her. Something inside me ruptured. What barely a breath. He reached toward me, desperation rising. I know how it sounds. I know. But it wasn't like, "Say it," I said, because clarity felt like air. He hesitated only a moment. I kissed her back to see if there was still a spark. The candle flickered, the apartment blurred, the future in the drawer curdled. He had taken our 3 years, every tenderness, every inside joke, every late-night embrace, and used them as kindling for an experiment. I wasn't angry, not yet. A strange glacial calm settled over me instead. He continued, his voice cracking. "Cindy, I'm confused. I think I need some space to figure out my feelings. Space to decide between the woman who stayed and the woman who broke him once already. I finally breathed. Not a gasp, not a sob, a slow, deliberate inhale. Then I spoke. Keep checking. He blinked. What? I didn't explain. Didn't raise my voice. Didn't plead. Didn't bargain. Didn't spiral. I turned and walked to the bedroom. He followed, panicked. Cindy, wait, we should talk. Aren't we going to fight for this? For us. I reached for my duffel bag on the top shelf, pulling it down. Methodically, I packed laptop, charger, passport, several days of clothes. What are you doing? He demanded, voice cracking into a shout. I zipped the bag. There's nothing to fight for, I said calmly. You just told me I'm an option in my own relationship. Pepper meowed as I scooped him up and grabbed his carrier. Cindy, please don't do this. At the front door, hand on the knob, I didn't turn back. Watch me. The door clicked shut behind me, a soft, definitive ending. Hours later, I sat on the edge of a sterile hotel bed, Pepper curled beside me, staring at a generic landscape painting. The silence felt heavy, thick enough to drown in. A spark. He kissed her to see if there was still a spark. The words looped in my mind like a cruel lullaby. I didn't cry. The hurt was too deep for tears. The truth was simple. The woman Aaron wanted existed only in the wreckage of his past. The woman he'd built a life with me had been nothing but warm lighting and steady comfort until something shinier flickered. The man I loved was gone, and the woman I used to be was about to disappear too. To save the rest of me, something had to end. And it had. The hotel room became a kind of purgatory, a beige air-conditioned limbo where nothing hurt sharply but everything ached in a low, relentless hum. Every morning, the artificial citrus smell of the freshly vacuumed carpet greeted me like a reminder that this wasn't my home. It wasn't even a place I wanted to stay. It was a holding cell between the life I had lived and the life I hadn't figured out how to build yet. Pepper curled at the foot of the bed, confused but loyal, his soft purrs the only constant that didn't feel tainted. The first thing I did after leaving Aaron was practical, almost surgical. I blocked him, everywhere. Phone, social media, email, everything. It wasn't anger, it was triage. A way to stop the bleeding before I lost parts of myself I couldn't get back. I sent one message to my boss. Family emergency. Need to work remotely this week. I can handle the Stevenson account from here. He responded in under 2 minutes. Take the time you need, Cindy. Laptop access is set. No questions, no pressure. It was the most unconditional support I'd received since this entire nightmare began. The next morning I woke just before dawn. The sky was a bruised purple heavy with clouds. I put on my running shoes, the ones I'd bought 3 years ago to start jogging, then never used. I stepped outside into the cold, quiet morning and ran. One step, another, breathe. It became my ritual. Each day blurred into the next. Wake, run, shower, work from the bland hotel desk. Eat, sleep, repeat. I was a ghost in my own life, but I was a ghost learning how to move through walls. After a week, I called my oldest friend Maya. She picked up on the second ring. Hey, you okay? Her voice was warm, concerned, grounded. Aaron and I are done, I said flat. No theatrics, no tears. Silence. Then what happened? I told her the condensed version. The coffee shop, the kiss, the spark. Maya cursed hard enough to make Pepper jump. That is unbelievably stupid, she said. You left right? Yes. Good. Cindy, he didn't deserve you. He never did. You were carrying that whole relationship. I didn't have the strength to argue. Later, I'd realized she was right. By the third week, the hotel room felt like a padded cell. I needed space. I needed light. I needed a future. So I started looking for an apartment. Not a place for us, but a place for me. Nothing with shared memories. Nothing with shadows shaped like Aaron. I found a sleek one-bedroom in a new building across town. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a concrete balcony, walls that didn't know my heartbreak. I signed the lease the same day. Moving in felt like a ceremony, a quiet, private ritual of recreation. Every item I bought was a declaration of independence. A new bed frame, simple modern. A soft taupe couch that hugged the living room corner. A ridiculously expensive coffee maker I didn't need but deserved. A guitar hung on the wall, the one I hadn't touched since college. I filled the shelves with my books, not our books. The silence in the space wasn't loud. It was peaceful. This was my fortress, my sanctuary. And I was the only architect. Slowly, something inside me began to shift. Not joy, not yet, but presence. A quiet sense of self returning breath by breath. The updates started coming in through Maya. She hadn't meant to become my unofficial intelligence agency, but friends talk and gossip flows, and eventually, news makes its way to you whether you ask or not. 2 months after I left, she sent a text. Maya, Cindy, just heard something from Sam. Aaron moved in with Melissa, like a week after you left. I read the message while assembling an IKEA bookshelf. I stared at the words, a week. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel betrayed. I found the right-sized Allen key, tightened the screws, and moved on. Data. That's all it was now. A month later, Maya round 2. Melissa just lost her job. Brand conflict with her boss or some drama. No stable income now in that apartment. A beat later, Maya heard they've been fighting. A lot. I was at the gym between sets on the leg press machine. I wiped sweat from my brow, switched machines, and kept going. Again noise. Not my life, not my problem. Then came the final update. The one that should have felt like vindication, but didn't. Maya and I sat on my new balcony drinking pale golden beers, watching city lights flicker awake. Full scoop, she said, leaning back in her chair. It's ugly over there. I waited. Silence always made people elaborate. Melissa told her sister she hasn't slept in days. She and Aaron are fighting constantly. He lost his project contract last week. He's been, I don't know, depressed or angry or both. I took a sip of beer. It tasted crisp, clean, like closure. And I said softly, "That's it," she said. Then with a shake of her head, textbook karma. She left him once. She came back. And, well, I looked out over the city. I don't think it's karma, I said. It's cause and effect. She mistook chaos for passion. He mistook nostalgia for love. Maya stared at me with a mix of awe and sadness. You're ice cold, Sin. No, I said, breathing in the night air. I'm just elsewhere. Their drama wasn't mine anymore. Their fire was burning itself out. My life was rekindling, steady, glowing, slow, but sure. And for the first time in months, I felt something like peace move through me. Not triumph, not revenge, just peace. Quiet, warm, and wholly mine. The problem with moving on is that eventually you start living again without meaning to. Small moments sneak in, moments that don't hurt, don't feel heavy, don't carry his shadow. One morning, I woke up and realized I had slept through the night without dreaming of him. Another day I made coffee and didn't feel the phantom sting of remembering how he used to hog the creamer. It was slow, almost invisible, but real. I rebuilt myself quietly. I filled my new apartment with things that felt like me. A woven blanket and deep navy lavender candles. Soft lighting plants. I actually watered on Schedule A record player, spinning vinyl, while Pepper sunbathed on the balcony. Nothing extravagant, just steady, comforting rituals. I was healing. Piece by piece, breath by breath. Meanwhile, through the soft but persistent tendrils of gossip, Aaron's life began to unravel. It happened the way it always does in these stories, messy, predictable, and somehow still painful to witness in the abstract. Maya saw Sam today. Want to hear the latest disaster bulletin? I didn't, but curiosity is a stubborn thing. Sure. Maya, Melissa, and Aaron broke up. Again. I guess things got bad. I didn't respond immediately. She kept typing. Maya, screaming matches. She accused him of using her. He accused her of being the same person who broke him years ago. I sat on the couch, Pepper curled against my thigh, vibrating with a slow, sleepy purr. I stared at the message. I felt nothing sharp, no satisfaction, just a detached acknowledgement. Like watching a movie you've already read spoilers for. I typed back. Me, okay. A week later, I walked into the grocery store hoping to grab coffee beans and spinach before the after-work rush hit. The universe had a sense of humor, apparently. As I browsed the produce aisle, Maya called me, not text called, which was unusual. I picked up. What's up? Her tone dropped into that "are you sitting down" register. Cindy, just heard something else about Aaron. I sighed. Let me guess. Disaster 2.0. Try 5.0. Melissa moved out. The job she lost, turns out she was covering some expenses with her savings. He didn't notice at first. Then, well, Maya hesitated. She said he was becoming someone she didn't recognize. People don't change under pressure, I said softly. They reveal. Silence then. That's poetic and terrifying. I shrugged even though she couldn't see it. It's just true. The updates trickled in tiny sparks in the distance that fizzled before reaching me. Aaron wasn't looking for work. He spent most of his time focusing on himself, which in reality meant late-night gaming, avoiding responsibility, and living off whatever remained in his savings account. Someone who had once cared so deeply about structure and collaboration had become exactly the kind of person who panicked under emotional weight, someone who clung to nostalgia instead of building something new. But here's the twist, I realized. I wasn't comparing my life to his anymore. I wasn't looking at the ruins of his whirlwind romance with Melissa and thinking good, or even serves him right. Instead, I thought, this has nothing to do with me. And that was the most freeing part. He wasn't my business. He wasn't my responsibility. He wasn't my person. Not anymore. Around the same time, unexpected light began slipping into my life. I joined a small weekly creative writing meetup, not because I thought I was particularly good, but because I needed something new, something mine. At first, I barely talked, just listened. Absorbed the stories, the emotions, the way strangers could build worlds with a single sentence. Then slowly I started participating, offering ideas, sharing tiny scenes, laughing. One of the regulars, Daniel, always sat across from me, brown hair falling over his forehead, quiet but attentive. The kind of guy who listened like he actually cared. He had an easy smile, a soft voice, and a kindness that wasn't performative. He wasn't a love interest, not yet, maybe not ever. He was simply gentle presence, a reminder that connection didn't have to be painful or dramatic to matter. Sometimes he walked with me after the group dispersed. We talked about books, films, why we write, the strange comfort of starting over. On one of those evenings, as we strolled beneath the warm glow of streetlights, he said something so simple it stayed with me. "You seem like someone rebuilding something important." I inhaled slowly. Maybe I am. He didn't push, didn't interrogate, just nodded like he understood rebuilding wasn't a process, it was a season. I didn't tell him about Aaron. Not then, not yet. This new chapter was mine, sacred, untouched by the ruins of the past. But the universe has its timing, doesn't it? As I grew steadier, stronger, more rooted in myself, Aaron's decline accelerated. The messages from Maya became more incredulous. Maya. Okay, now he's ignoring his landlord. He's 2 months behind on rent. Maya. He told Sam he's taking time for artistic clarity. Girl, what? He's a project manager. Maya, I think he's spiraling. I started answering less. Not because I didn't care, but because I didn't want his story to be the background music of my healing anymore. He was a chapter I'd already finished, a closed door. The real shift happened one night when Maya said, the way he's falling apart, I thought it would feel satisfying to tell you. But honestly, I think you're just done. And for the first time, I realized she was right. I wasn't invested, not in his misery, not in his redemption, not in his chaos. I was simply elsewhere. I had my own mornings, my own routines, my own peace blooming in the corners of my life like soft green plants reaching for sunlight. Aaron's implosion wasn't my victory. My calm was. My quiet was. My life slowly unfurling again was. And I didn't need him or anyone to validate it. Everything I needed was already happening inside the 4 clean walls of the life I was rebuilding. And it was just the beginning. 6 months passed. 6 months of quiet mornings. 6 months of stability blooming in slow, steady colors. 6 months of waking up without dread, without second-guessing my worth, without the dull ache of betrayal threading itself through my ribs. I thought the past had finally learned to stay where it belonged behind me. I was wrong. It began at 2:07 a.m. on a Tuesday. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, startling me awake. The contact was an unknown number. I almost ignored it, until the first preview flashed across the lock screen. Unknown Cindy. I know I shouldn't be texting you, but I'm so alone. I stared at the words in the dark, my pulse suddenly cold. Before I could decide whether to block it, another message came. Unknown. 2:08 a.m. He's a monster. He's cheating on me. Right now. At the bar. I saw him with some girl. My breath caught. This wasn't a wrong number. This was Aaron's spiral spilling over. Unknown. 2:09 a.m. I left you for him, and now he's doing the same thing to me. The irony is killing me. Another message. Sloppier spelling. Messier punctuation. Unknown. 2:10 a.m. I miss you. I miss our apartment. I miss Pepper. You were the only good thing I ever had. I was so stupid. I closed my eyes. The messages weren't apologies. They weren't accountability. They were desperation wrapped in vodka and panic. The same man who once told me he needed space to explore the spark had now found himself burned. 6 months ago, that might have cracked something inside me. But now it was just noise. Unknown. 2:11 a.m. Please answer. Please just tell me I'm not the worst person in the world. I read the entire chain once. Not twice. Just once. Then, with a calmness that felt absolute, I tapped select all, delete, and blocked the number. Then I rolled over and went back to sleep. The next attempt came 3 days later. A voicemail from his mother. I didn't pick up, but the transcription popped up on my screen. Carol, Cindy, dear. I'm sorry to bother you. I know Aaron hurt you terribly, but he's really struggling. Melissa is gone. He's alone. He's learned his lesson. He's truly sorry. Could you just call him? Even 5 minutes. He's destroying himself. We're so worried. I closed the voicemail. Carol was kind, but she'd always enabled him. She'd always tried to cushion consequences for him. Always cleaned up the emotional messes he left behind. I wasn't doing that again. Not for him, not for anyone. I deleted the voicemail. Blocked her number too kindly but firmly. Boundaries are not cruelty. They are protection. The third attempt was the one I knew deep down was inevitable. The one I dreaded, not because I feared him, but because confrontation always forces truth into the open. I was in the cereal aisle at the grocery store comparing fiber content like a responsible adult re-entering the world. Pepper's food was in the cart. The day was normal. Or it should have been. I sensed a presence before I heard a voice. Cindy. I stiffened. I turned slowly. Aaron stood a few feet away holding a half-empty basket. Inside it, a wilted pre-made salad and a bottle of cheap wine. He looked older. Not in the natural sense, in the weathered sense. Like life had been storming inside him non-stop. Hair rumpled, eyes hollow, cheeks sunken, clothes wrinkled and mismatched. Not the polished man I once cooked scallops for. When he saw my expression, something flickered across his face. Relief, shame, desperation, all tangled together. You got my text, he said quietly. You didn't answer. I placed the cereal in my cart. I did. He blinked thrown. What does that mean? It means I saw them. And you just ignored me. I met his eyes fully steady, grounded, unshaken. Yes. The word hit him like a physical blow. He stepped back slightly, inhaling sharply. You're really that cold. After everything I'm going through. After what she did to me. After what you did to me, I corrected softly. He flinched. His voice rose faster than he meant it to. I was vulnerable. I was confused. You were supposed to fight for us. I let the silence expand between us, a soft reminder that shouting wouldn't open doors anymore. He waited for me to argue, to plead, to give him the emotional cushioning he'd taken for granted. But I didn't. Instead, I spoke with the same quiet clarity I'd discovered in the ruins of my old life. Aaron, you made a choice. You tested a spark, and it burned you. He swallowed hard, jaw trembling. My part in your story ended 6 months ago. Silence, a thick, suffocating silence. He stared at me, desperate to find the old version of me, the Cindy who would bend, soothe, rescue. But she was gone. I hope you figure things out, I added calmly. But that has nothing to do with me. I turned my cart and walked away, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like white noise. He didn't follow. He didn't call after me. I didn't look back. I didn't have to. Because sometimes the most powerful ending isn't a confrontation. It's a clean, quiet exit. One aisle after another, the distance grew soft, steady, irreversible. And by the time I reached the self-checkout, I realized something profound. It wasn't his begging. It wasn't his downfall. It wasn't my refusal. It was the peace inside me, unshakable, unreachable, unbroken. The chapter had closed long before he realized it, and I wasn't reopening it. Not for him, not for anyone. Saturday morning sunlight spilled across my apartment like warm honey, slow and golden, softening the edges of everything it touched. The hardwood floors glowed. The tiny dust motes floating in the air looked almost magical, and Pepper, my sweet, clingy, opinionated cat, was stretched out in a sunbeam, purring like a tiny engine. It was peaceful, uncomplicated, quiet in a way that didn't ache anymore. For a long time, I thought the night Aaron texted me at 200 a.m. would be the moment of victory, the moment I'd finally feel avenged, satisfied, vindicated. But when the moment came, there was no spark of triumph, no rush of serves you right, just nothing. The silence after deleting his messages felt cleaner than any revenge ever could. These days, my life was simple in the best ways. I woke up early, opened the balcony door, let the breeze drift in while I made coffee with the ridiculously expensive machine I'd once convinced myself I didn't deserve. The smell of rich espresso filled the apartment, my apartment untouched by old shadows. I moved through my routines with a softness I hadn't felt in years. I was no longer receiving daily updates about the chaos of someone else's choices. No more guessing, no more bracing, no more waiting for the other shoe to shatter my sanity. Instead, there was space, wide, quiet, breathable. And in that space, something new had begun to grow. That evening, I got ready for a casual night out. Not a date, not officially, but maybe something close. Daniel from the writing group had invited me to see a band at a small club downtown. We'd been talking more lately, longer chats after meetings shared, walks to the subway, lingering conversations about everything and nothing. No pressure, no expectations, just connection. A soft beginning, not a spark artificially lit from nostalgia or chaos. When I looked at myself in the mirror before leaving, I paused, not to examine flaws, not to rehearse conversations, just to acknowledge myself. I looked peaceful, stronger, calmer, like someone who had stepped out of a storm and found solid ground again. Pepper rubbed against my legs, meowing indignantly, as if reminding me not to forget about him entirely. I crouched down and stroked the top of his head. "Don't wait up," I whispered jokingly. He blinked slowly, unimpressed. The show was in a dimly lit venue with warm string lights and a low stage. The music thrummed through the floorboards, deep and rhythmic. Daniel sat beside me, shoulders relaxed, smiling softly whenever he caught me enjoying the music. At some point, he leaned in close enough that his breath brushed the side of my cheek and said, "You look lighter these days." I swallowed, not expecting the comment. "Do I?" He nodded. "Yeah, like someone who finally remembered how to breathe." I didn't blush. I didn't look away. I just smiled slow and genuine. For the first time in a long time, I believed him. The band played a mellow song, the kind that wraps around your ribs and settles quietly into your bones. And in that moment, surrounded by warm lights and soft music, and the gentle awareness of another person's presence, I realized something important. My happiness wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't fueled by revenge or righteousness or triumph. It was steady, warm, gentle, the opposite of everything Aaron had ever brought into my life. Later that night, I stood on my balcony again, the city breathing beneath me. Warm air, faint horns in the distance, the steady pulse of a place alive. I called Maya, laughing, as I told her about the band, about the songs, about how fun it was just being present. No baggage, no ghosts pulling at my sleeves. She teased me about Daniel, but didn't push. She didn't have to. She could hear the difference in my voice. When we hung up, I lingered outside a little longer, letting the breeze brush against my skin. I thought briefly of Aaron, of the chaos, the heartbreak, the messy unraveling of a story that was never meant to last. But the thought passed through me like a shadow that no longer lingered. I didn't need the last word. I didn't need his apology. I didn't need closure scripted like some dramatic finale. I had my life back, and it was enough. More than enough. The real victory wasn't his regret. It wasn't his downfall. It wasn't the hollow satisfaction of seeing him crumble beneath the weight of his choices. It was this: a quiet apartment, a warm cup of coffee, a playful cat, a night out with someone kind, a heart no longer splitting itself trying to rescue someone who didn't want to be saved. My peace was the answer. My silence was the closure. My life, full, steady, and growing, was the final chapter. I didn't say a word to him. I didn't need to. My thriving absence was louder than anything I could have said.